Good morning, good afternoon, distinguished speakers, colleagues. Welcome to participate in the launch of the Global Innovation Network for Teaching and Learning, or GINTL, a network in the making by 20 Finnish higher education institutions, their partner institutions and collaborators in the African continent, China and India. My name is Sai Väyrynen, and I'm the Academic Director of the GINTL Africa and China Networks, coordinated by the University of Helsinki, and GINTL India is coordinated by University of Jyväskylä. GINTL network activities are carried out by the Finnish higher education institutions with their partners in Finland and partner institutions in 3 geographical areas. As higher education institutions, our activities are grounded in research, particularly in education sciences and closely related fields. Our focus is on contributing towards Sustainable Development Goal number 4, quality education, keeping in mind the quest for equity, equality, and inclusion. The network is also motivated by the Sustainable Development Goal number 17, revitalize the global partnerships for sustainable development, emphasizing that any of these development goals can only be realized with the strong global partnerships and cooperation. And this launch is an invitation towards further forming these partnerships. Our program today starts with the video greetings from the vice rectors of the coordinating universities. We will then hear a short keynote speech to inspire and spark up panel discussion on higher education partnerships. 3 distinguished scholars from the 3 GINTL regions will discuss partnerships together with the scholars from one of the GINTL higher education institutions in Finland. And after the panel discussion, we will hear reflections from the Ministry of Education and Culture, and closing remarks will be delivered by the Dean of the Faculty of Education and Psychology at the University of Jyväskylä and the Dean of the Faculty of Educational Sciences at the University of Helsinki. During this event, a chat is available for your questions and comments. So once again, you are warmly welcome. And we will now hear pre-recorded greetings from the coordinating universities. Professor Hanna Snellman, Vice Rector of the University of Helsinki, followed by Professor Maria-Leena Laakso, Vice Rector of University of Jyväskylä.
Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends of global education. Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. This famous quote by Nelson Mandela very beautifully also highlights the right reason why we are here. We are here to celebrate the birth of an important new initiative, and as Vice Rector of the University of Helsinki, it is my particular pleasure to welcome you all to this launch event of the Global Innovation Network for Teaching and Learning, or in short, GINTL or GINTL. GINTL exists to make a positive difference globally, to spark cycles of learning for better education. It brings together dedicated researchers and practitioners from Finland and beyond who want to contribute towards achieving the Sustainable Development Goals, or specifically the goal number 4, ensuring inclusive and equitable quality education and promoting lifelong learning opportunities for all. GINTL is also a great example of how our current strategy at the University of Helsinki is put into action. We believe that teaching and learning are for everyone, for the benefit of the world. The Finnish educational system has a lot to give globally. Personally, I think that the word peruskoulu, our basic education, is one of the Finnish words that everybody should know, peruskoulu. I am very proud that we have the privilege of driving this important initiative and look forward to its great success. Let me continue by saying a few more words about what GINTL is. Established in 2021, the Global Innovation Network for Teaching and Learning brings together 20 Finnish higher education institutions, both universities and universities of applied sciences, to work together. The ambition is that together we are stronger. Funded by the Finnish Ministry of Education and Culture for 2021 to 2024, the Finnish partners work together to fulfill our global responsibility by working on our mandate: research, teaching, and societal relations. The Global Innovation Network for Teaching and Learning consists of 3 networks: GINTL Africa and GINTL China. These 2 are coordinated by the University of Helsinki, and GINTL India, which is coordinated by the University of Jyväskylä. In other words, GINTL is one network that comprises of 3 bilateral networks in 2 different countries and one big continent, Africa, involving several countries. What I want to emphasize is that GINTL is a network in the making. The work is based on a dialogue with partners and nourishes mutual learning, sharing, and collaboration. Shared priorities are important, but it takes time to formulate them. This launch, with its panel discussion, is one way of building a shared understanding on what size sustainable partnerships could be, and I very much look forward to hearing the results from this dialogue. Let me finish by going back to the quote by Nelson Mandela. His words seem to me now more relevant than ever. We know that education plays a crucial role in building a better post-pandemic world, in eliminating various kinds of inequalities, in reducing poverty, in creating a more sustainable future, and in fostering peace. I wish to congratulate Director Sai Väyrynen and all the teams in our partner universities, and wish you all the best of luck in the important work that you will now begin. Thank you.
Good morning also on my behalf, and thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to give these short remarks. I have made a couple of slides, so I share them with you if you can see them. Yes, my name is Marja-Leena Laakso. I'm Vice Rector responsible for education here at the University of Jyväskylä, and our university coordinates the collaboration in GINTL India network. We just heard Professor Hanna Snellman talking about the importance of establishing shared priorities. And I would like to continue a bit on the same topic. In international collaboration, shared priorities are often referred as themes. For example, 21st century skills, student well-being, inclusive schools, and so on. JYU has coordinating many meetings about this thematic interest with organizations in India educational sector. And we have heard what are the particular themes that they would enjoy having research-based collaboration with us. And we have started thinking how these themes intersect with what our Finnish higher educational institutions have to offer. However, shared priorities are not just about themes, but they are also about modalities or ways of collaboration. through GINTL, we are looking forward to learning how our counterparts in India, China, and the African continent would like to collaborate with Finnish higher education institutions. There are some potential modalities for collaboration. GINTL could be a platform for co-creating applied research and development initiatives. It could be a platform where we test research-based solutions for shared challenges in teaching and learning. Some initiatives might, of course, rather focus on basic research, or they can initiate collaboration between networks, like GINTL Africa has started doing with networks in the African continent. There could also be joint online courses when the global pandemic finally retreats, actual in the flesh mobility of staff and students. From our side, we can say that our staff and students are very interested in global educational issues and very willing to participate in a variety of collaborations. When we think of GINTL today and GINTL in the future, so in the GINTL website, you can read about the collaborations that have actualized so far. Others are still in the pipeline and they will be added there later on. But I think as we are thinking now the options for collaboration alone and together, I would like to encourage us all to think very creatively. I think the questions to all of us today are, what else could GINTL be? We have the funding for another 3 years that allows us to reimagine higher education collaboration in the fields of teaching and learning. We should think what such collaboration would look like in the future. What are the sustainable and mutually beneficial ways of working together? In this launching event today, we will be hearing reflections around these questions by scholars from all 4 GINTL regions. I'm very sure that the keynote and the panel discussions, they have a lot to offer us in these respects and around these questions. I trust that the higher education institutions can, as the GINTL slogan says, spark cycles of learning for quality education. Definitely so. And with these remarks, I would like to thank you all for joining us today to deliberate on how we might spark such cycles. Thank you.
The Vice Rectors Snellman and Laakso from the University of Helsinki and the University of Jyväskylä for the very, very encouraging words. And indeed, I think no network becomes a network without people and institutions committing themselves and practically working together as a network. Merriam-Webster dictionary describes network as, I quote, a usual informally interconnected group or association of persons, or, quote, an interconnected or interrelated chain, group, or system, end quote. And I think these descriptions both illustrate the way in which we would like to understand GINTL network, working together, being connected to one another towards common goals, and creating mutually beneficial partnerships characterized by interconnected relations. We will next hear a short keynote speech presented by Professor Ahmed Bawa. Professor Bawa is a theoretical physicist, and he currently holds a position of Chief Executive Officer of Universities of South Africa, or USAF. In this capacity, he is a member of the Board of Directors of USAF, the representative association of all 26 public universities in South Africa. Professor Bawa has an extensive career and experience in higher education leadership, and he has held several important positions in research and science policy development in South Africa. Professor Bawa's work for science and higher education has been acknowledged also through many awards. Among them was the Transformative Leadership Award bestowed on him by the University of Pennsylvania's Netter Center for his dedication to producing significant societal change and to working tirelessly, enabling the institutions in South Africa to realize that goal. Professor Bawa is also well known for advocating universities' responsiveness to their local context. I'm very honored to welcome Professor Bawa to share his thoughts on international higher education collaboration. And during his speech, you may post questions to Professor Bawa in the chat box. We can take up some questions as a part of the panel discussion. Professor Bawa, the stage is yours.
Thank you so much, Dr. Raiden, and I want to just thank you very much for inviting me to this, to present a few words at this really interesting launch of GINTL. I am so enamored really to have heard Professor Snellman and Professor Lakso. I think they made some very pertinent remarks relating to GINTL, and I think that there's an opportunity here for you to really kind of create something that has enormous impact on our societies. In a sense, there can be no more important time or more appropriate time, if you like, for us to begin to establish strong international connections. And of course, the key thing about GINTL is that it's not just international collaboration, but it's international collaboration on education. And as Professor Snellman kind of indicated, with her quote of Nelson Mandela, education is really at the heart of all the grand challenges that we face as both as local citizens of nations and as global citizens. And of course, the bringing together, if you like, those two elements are critical, the international collaboration and education, if you like. All the grand challenges that we face as humanity, whether it's climate change or food security, or whether it has to do with the management of future pandemics or whatever, all of them are simultaneously intensely local and intensely global. They kind of really, they have representations in both spheres, if you like. And it is really that key issue, I think, that points towards the need for us to really focus very hard on building these large international collaborations. And talking about a more appropriate time, what we do know now is that if we are to solve the global warming challenge, then that solution has to be both at the local level and the global level, that it's not going to be something that's going to be solved by governments, but it's going to be solved by people. Of course, we've also just seen the outbreak of war in Europe. The most kind of astounding kind of development, so unexpected in some senses. But what we also see are wars in other parts of the world. We see the war in Syria, in Yemen, in Ethiopia, and in various other parts of the world. Wars are continuing. There are massive migrations taking place, and at the same time, what we are seeing is kind of the growth of various kinds of neo-nationalisms. Even in the most developed nations, we are seeing, kind of a shift towards kind of nationalist tendencies, if you like. And of course, at the same time, in many parts of the world, we have despots. So that's a clear indication, in fact, that that there's a need for us to think about how to kind of build kind of a global approach, if you like, to solving our problems. Because if we don't, we'll end up in a deeply fragmented world. And of course, what COVID-19, the pandemic showed us was just the ability for us to work as a global citizenry to solve some of the largest problems facing us, one of the largest challenges facing us. And of course, at the same time, we saw the outbreak of vaccine diplomacy and the fact that, that we still have nations which have not established a kind of a vaccine, a decent vaccine program, if you like. COVID-19, of course, also the pandemic also taught us about how we can accelerate the use of technology. And of course, that has made a huge difference, if you like, in the way in which we think about education now. I don't think we'll ever move away from face-to-face education, but the use of technology in enhancing the quality of learning and so on is something that's quite vital. And one of the most concerning things, of course, and it has to do with the use of technology, is just the rise in anti-intellectualism, the rise in populism, and all of these very dangerous tendencies, which really kind of threaten, if you like, the base on which we can make evidence-based kind of decisions and so on. It's so astounding, in fact, that you can have the president of one of the world's most powerful countries speak about the consumption of sort of antiseptics, not antiseptics, if you like, or products that are used for cleaning to deal with the pandemic. It's that we've reached that level of craziness and anti-intellectualism. See, all of these can only be addressed if we constructively build constructively create both a new generation of people who are locally based, of course, but are also global citizens. That we have to, in the end, think about the role of education in building a global citizenry. And of course, the role of GINTL could be so critical in this, because what it would do is provide us with the basis of creating a global commons, if you like, of scholars and scholarship relating to education. And that would be such a powerful kind of enterprise to address both the local challenges and to address these grand challenges that we face. Yeah. And I want to also just say that one of the potential advantages of a center like GINTL is, in fact, its ability to try and ensure that the conversations around education are not just conversations between universities, but it's also about bringing into conversation kind of knowledge systems which are deep-seated in our communities and which can highly enhance, if you like, the quality of learning of children across the world. I mean, so it's really about saying, can we mobilize GINTL to really bring into conversation the deep-seated knowledges that exist in our communities. That's something I think that would be hugely valuable, to bring that kind of diversity into the learning of our young people as we attempt to develop a global citizenry. So I think what I'm arguing is that GINTL provides us with two really powerful tools. The one is just the act of producing an internationalization platform, bringing together scholars from around the world and bringing them into conversation. But at the same time, it's about saying, how do we build co-create, how do we co-create an education that leads to the building of a global citizenry? That seems to me to be a vitally important role that GINTL can play. Just to conclude then, I think that, from my point of view, at least, it seems to me that the idea has to be that there's a strong dependence on mutuality, that there's co-creation, that we see the strength of bringing together people from different parts of the world with very different experiences, and to try and ensure that that what we are working towards is this idea of a global commons. Without that, I'm so afraid that in 10 years, that we will be back with a very, very fragmented world. And at the end of the day, it's only the influence of getting young people into this global citizenry that can help us to change this. This is not something that's going to be changed by presidents and prime ministers and so on. It has to be changed by teachers and children. With that, Dr. Verheyen, thank you so much, and I hope that was a useful input. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Professor Bawa, for your inspiring intervention. You really made a case for education and also a case for higher education collaboration. And perhaps really the task for us is to finding also new ways of collaborating. And I think your words set a tone for our panel discussion on the topic, Sparking Cycles of Collaboration, Sustainable and Responsible Higher Education Partnerships for Education Development. The panel will be facilitated by Dr. Olli-Pekka Malinen. He is the regional expert for GINTL China Network, and he will introduce the panelists to you. Over to Olli-Pekka.
Thank you, Sai, and I'm very glad to inform that we have an excellent roster of panelists representing all GINTL partner regions and also Finland, of course. So let me start with the introduction. Next, we have Dr. Musumi Mukherjee, who is an associate professor and deputy director of the International Institute for Higher Education Research and Capacity Building at OP Jindal Global University in India. She also serves as the founding executive director of the Center for Comparative and Global Education, and she is a member secretary of Research and Ethics Review Board at OP Jindal Global University. She has 20 years of teaching and research experience in India, the United States, Australia, and the Middle East. So, welcome. Next, we go to almost to the Arctic Circle, to Finland, University of Oulu, from where we have Dr. Elina Lehtomäki, who is a professor of global education at the University of Oulu, where she leads the research team of education, diversity, globalization, and ethics. She's an advisory board member of the International Academic Network for Global Education and Learning and the Finnish University Partnership in International Development. Elina Lehtomäki has been an invited expert to UNESCO, UNICEF, and the World Bank, and has long-term collaboration with colleagues in African countries through universities, ministries, non-governmental organizations, and international organizations. And last, we have Dr. Liu Baozun, who is a professor of comparative education and the director of the Institute of International and Comparative Education at Beijing Normal University in China. He is also the director of the National Centers for Comparative Education and for International Education at the Beijing Normal University, as well as the president of Comparative Education Society of Asia. With his specialization in comparative education, higher education, education policy, and management, Dr. Liu has been involved in national and international research and consultancy projects and published more than 260 journal papers and 20 books. So welcome also to Professor Liu. Now let's get started with the actual panel. So first, I would have an opening question for our panelists. And it goes like this. Many Finnish higher education institutions have the notion of sustainable and responsible partnerships in their global strategy documents. But what does the concept of responsible partnerships mean from your perspective? And maybe we start first with Professor Lehtomäki.
Yeah, thank you for the very important question, because this is something the Finnish universities are now working on their own global responsibility and sustainability. I chair the University of Oulu, Sustainable Development and Global Responsibility higher education sort of transdisciplinary working group, where we have both the university leadership involved as well as representatives of different faculties, institutions within the university. And we emphasize, I think, the ethical engagement very much so that we also reflect on our own functions, on our own work, and that's not enough. We have to also emphasize ethical engagement in our partnerships. What is it that we do? What are the reasons? What are the justifications for our collaboration? And by this, I mean also that we need to look at our projects, our collaboration networks, who leads, who's taking the leadership, not only look at what we do, but also look at the initiatives. Where do the initiatives come from? How do we respond to them? How do we share the leadership of projects? And how do we improve and advance something that Professor Bawa earlier mentioned already, which is this co-creation of knowledge and recognition of different types of knowledges. And I think these are very important, but not easy questions to us. We are, I think, more used to look at things from our own perspectives, and changing perspectives requires, I think, real self-reflection also of the institutions and involving everybody as an institution. And one of the key issues we have highlighted in our strategy for sustainable development and responsibility is that we try to work both bottom up and from up to the bottom, so that we try to engage everybody. That means the university community as a whole, students, staff, but also our partnerships. And I think this means a lot of work, and this is a long-term work. This is not something that we state at the policy level. We have to work it throughout our own system and throughout our partnerships. So sustainability, as we heard from Professor Bawa, is also something that cannot be reached alone. Everybody's input and contribution is needed. And we produce scientific knowledge. We need to look at also where is this knowledge used. And we produce knowledge that is not maybe immediately to be used, but we have basic research, we have applied research, and we need to bridge on these, that we work across different disciplines, across different fields. And in the field of education, I really enjoy working with people from different fields, because I can also make a case for education. Whether I discuss with colleagues from business or physics or medicine, trying to emphasize that yes, we lay the ground, but we'll discuss that more today in our panel discussion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Professor Lehtomäki. And next we go to Professor Liu Bao-chun. And just to remind that the question was, what does the concept of responsible partnership mean from your perspective? And your microphone is still muted.
Thank you for the question. You know, at BU in 2020, we also promulgated the global development strategic plan for 2020 and 2025, and implemented the global development strategic partnership plan. BU also stressed the importance of responsible partnership. Responsible partnership means, I mean, on BU side, it means reliable. It means equal and negotiated partners. It also means that we work together to achieve cooperation goals, overcome difficulties, and meet challenges, enjoy the cooperation result, and also, to work together, just as the Winter Olympic Games, together for the shared future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Liu. And how about Professor Mosumi Mukherjee? What does the concept of responsible partnership mean from your perspective?
Good morning to all my colleagues at Finland. Good afternoon and good evening to all other colleagues from around the world. First of all, I would like to thank the GINTL network and the organizers of this event for inviting me as a panelist. And now, in response to the question that you have raised, I would really like to refer to an edited volume of book by Stephen Ritchie that came out way back in 2007, where he identified several characteristics of successful research collaborations following multiple case study research in educational researchers, into educational researchers, collaborative research practices and relationships. I think that the success of sustainable and responsible higher education partnerships can be also discussed in terms of these characteristics that he identified. And the characteristics that he identified were solidarity, emotional energy, trust, agency, power, and ethical praxis. Now, each of these aspects, what I found in my own work in research collaborations and work of others in this area, is that each of these aspects of success of research collaboration could be adversely affected because of the differences in social, academic, and institutional cultural practices among scholars in the global north versus post-colonial context of the global south, where I am personally embedded right now. And I can see observe these differences all the more because of my transnational experiences for several years, in the global north, and then returning, to the global south. I could all the more observe personally also these differences. And this is something I think we need to all think in terms of building any kind of partnership and relationship. Currently, I'm involved in a number of collaborative research projects and all kinds of training programs that our institute organizes. Most of our programs are partnership-based programs that we have I've been working on here since the past 5 years. I joined this university in India. And each time we have a partnership and we have a project, I always keep observing how these aspects really play a strong role. So I think it's very, very important to do some investment of time and energy in building a sense of solidarity, emotional energy, trust, agency, power, and ethical praxis, something our colleague from Oulu University also highlighted in terms of relationship building for doing partnership work. I'd like to halt over there and respond maybe a little later furthermore after listening to others.
Thank you very much. And I think that was a very welcome reminder for us working at the Global North. What we should always keep in mind and consider. Thank you very much from my behalf.
Thank you for the panelists, and thank you for respecting time. It's very short, and but I appreciate the smooth running of the panel. I think we have heard very convincing voices and well-justified arguments on higher education partnerships and on the need of building long-term partnerships. But I also think that the discussion pointed out the need to think critically what internationalization of higher education means and entails. How does this discussion resonate to the Ministry of Education and Culture? Let me call upon Jaana Palojärvi. She's the Director of International Relations at the Ministry of Education and Culture. Over to Jaana.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sai, and my sincere thanks to all speakers of today. This has been very rewarding to me as well. I think this has shown also the importance of GINTL right in the beginning. I mean, sharing and having different sort of views in aspects which might have been self-evident for the Finns, like internationalization, which is seen always as a positive thing in our concepts. Maybe to start with more general remarks, kind of reflecting what Professor Bawa said in the beginning. I think we all agree that education is a cornerstone of so many things. It's the cornerstone in developing democracy. It's the cornerstone in developing educational growth and competitiveness of nations. And also it's kind of a cornerstone to respond to various global challenges at the moment. However, as Mrs. Väyrynen already indicated, I think this discussion shows that we might have different concepts how to solve these challenges, although we might agree what would be the good solution. But when we are kind of recognizing these avenues, I think the only mean to do it is to have dialogue, to have partnerships, to share our views, and maybe we can gain more than 1 + 1 could be 3 or 4 if we do that. Maybe it's good also to mention that in Finland, I think we all see education as a package. This is kind of what Mr. Bawa said, a deep-seated knowledge in Finnish understanding, or deep-seated concept in Finnish understanding, that when we speak about quality education, it's not only about academic quality. We always are speaking about equity, inclusion, ethics when we are speaking of education. It's part of the quality of education in our deep thinking. So there's always a strong social component in quality when we speak about education. And I think that is something, it's a message which I would share with you, because it is kind of a strong message. Whatever we do bilaterally, in multilateral cooperation, that's always there. Maybe because time is limited and I don't want to use your time and exceed my time slot, but maybe some examples what we do. Just this morning, both of our ministers, Minister of Higher Education and Minister of Education, approved an action plan for Africa. About a year ago, we made an Africa strategy nationwide in Finland, where we were kind of identifying the major areas of cooperation, and each ministry and each branch of administration was required to make their own action plan. And this is what we have done. And it's based not on development cooperation. That is something I would underline. It's based on partnerships. It's based on intensifying dialogue in politics, in economics, people-to-people cooperation. But the whole basis is the partnerships and how we can deepen the partnerships and kind of have more in-depth cooperation in that field with African countries. Secondly, I would like to mention that we just established, together with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Finnish Agency for Education, a center of expertise in education and development. The aim is to kind of support Finnish organizations, including higher education institutions, to have more international, to open more possibilities to international cooperation in development, in teaching and learning. And we are very much quite optimistic that this will open new avenues also for cooperation for Finnish researchers and Finnish teachers, of course, in general. And maybe third thing and the last thing I would like to mention and highlight is that just to remind you that in In September, we will have first education summit in the UN, which is linked to UN General Assembly, transforming education summit. We're still just starting or intensifying the preparations in that field, and I'm quite sure that also higher education institutions and networks all over the world will be getting involved with this process, and I'm sure there will be quite a lot to give. Lastly, I would like to highlight the importance of partnerships, international partnerships, but also kind of a multi-stakeholder cooperation country-wise. We have very close cooperation with our higher educational institutions. We are boosting the cooperation with NGOs, higher educational institutions, and business life as well, and also, of course, public administration. This is important because I think if we don't join our efforts and if we don't join our forces nationally and internationally as well, I think it's very difficult to gain and respond all these huge challenges we have been talking today. And I really am grateful for this initiative, and I'm very optimistic that GINTL will play a major role also in this field. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Palojärvi, and thank you for the encouragement for us as a GINTL network in the making, building these partnerships. So all good moments come to an end. So does this event. I would now like to invite Professor Anna-Maja Poikkeus, Dean of the Faculty of Education and Psychology at the University of Jyväskylä, to say a few concluding remarks.
Thank you. I'm very honored to be able to sort of have been part of this discussion, hearing your very valuable input, your viewpoints. We are really thankful for your time, your expertise. And what I was impressed most was this sort of openness to sort of engage in a dialogue where we could sort of raise up also what we have to learn from each other, is to sort of learn like what are each other's goals. I think developing partnerships in GINTL and in general requires listening to each other first, hearing out where we come from, our histories, our different voices, and then set up goals together, whether they are stretching our experience, sharing what we do for locally or globally, what we want to achieve, to be sort of open to negotiation. And I think that has been the most valuable experience for me at this point, that we have engaged in discussions with many actors, also NGOs, different sort of government officials. And I think everyone has a voice and a role. And what I was impressed was how many of you sort of laid out the groundwork that we have to establish. We have to have sort of this prerequisite understanding that we are looking for fairness, equity, equality in collaboration, that all our voices have to be heard. And this idea of, it's not an idea, it's a goal that we do have to very much strive for: solidarity, this emotional trust that many of you talked about, to sort of build that block by block and maybe remove those obstacles in the road, because I think that they are always part of collaboration. You first have to sort of engage in this dialogue and then look for ways to go towards productive results. I think it was clear that there are some things that we have to sort of make sure that there are resources, that there are these policies and guidelines that we can agree upon, but also that we find the themes and modalities where we can start working with this kind of idea of participatory community research. I think it's a very valuable one. I think that we have to be sort of locally minded. What is useful, what is acceptable, what is making an impact. Even though we are working in the business of research education, we are also working with like ways to make a societal impact, which is locally relevant. So I thank you all very much. This discussion gave us a lot of perspective about the sensitivity and our readiness to look at things critically and find first what we mean with some concepts. Thank you. I'll turn over to Johanna. We can't hear you.
Johan, you are muted.
Classical mistake. I never learn. But dear friends, in this situation, I really thank you all from the bottom of my heart, and also on behalf of my brain, you for participating and contributing to this virtual seminar organized by GINTL. And I think that by building these partnerships for education development, we are really shaping sustainable futures. And I think that we need more understanding about all the sort of technological, structural, societal, global, cultural, educational changes that are happening right now. And I also think that it is vital that these phenomena around and in sustainability and education are explored with a multidisciplinary and collaborative gaze. The sustainability transition relates to culture, society, institution, and politics and policy making. Sustainability is very deeply also about democracy and social justice. Education is about democracy, citizenship, agency, and social justice. UNESCO's fresh report, probably familiar to all of you, Reimagining Our Futures Together, a new social contract for education, states that in a new social contract for education, pedagogy should be rooted in cooperation and solidarity, building the capacities of students and teachers to work together in trust to transform the world. As GINTL is a network in the making, we can truly be a forerunner in cooperation and collaboration, and also redefining how higher education institutions work and how we educate future teachers, for examples. Finally, I want to thank all the organizers, speakers, and participants for being passionate enough to make this seminar happen, and that you have shared us both ideas and time during these times. Furthermore, I want to thank all of you that I can be so confident saying this, that I truly believe that we have all today witnessed a solid start for our collaboration based on these fruitful and also thought-provoking discussions. I believe that together as participants of GINTL, we can open unforeseen possibilities for successful, global, responsible, reflexive in relation to internationalization or colonialism, to questions related to global South and North, build a trust-based long-term partnerships, collaborations, and co-creations that can profoundly change our ideas and practices of learning and teaching, and also of collaboration. I truly thank you all. Thank you, and see you soon.
Thank you, Professor Mäkelä, and thank you, Professor Poikkeus, the deans of the faculties where the GINTL coordinations are hosted. On behalf of the GINTL coordination, I would like to thank all the speakers today. Thank you for sharing your insights in such an inspiring way. And also a big thank to all the participants of this event, wherever you are. I hope this event makes our next steps together stronger. Please have a look on our new website for events in each of these 3 regional networks. On our website, you can also subscribe a newsletter to your email. In social media, you can find us in Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and in YouTube. And I would also like to thank the wonderful 2 coordination teams who made this event happen with the support of the GINTL network higher education institutions here in Finland, and hope to see you soon too. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you.